Now, if you have children, you know that children books do much more than entertain. They help shape how young people see themselves and the world around them. And for many years, African children had limited access to books featuring characters who looked like them or reflected their own experiences. But that's changing, thanks to a growing number of African authors creating stories rooted in local cultures, languages, and tradition. And one of those voices is Yatou Baldé, and she's here with us. Welcome. Welcome, Yatou. So let's start by the beginning. So how did you come about to create children's books?
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to talk with you tonight. So when I became a mom, naturally, I was telling story to my daughter and to her friends. And when we moved to Germany, when she was 5 years old, she keeps reminding me of where she was born, Senegal, and the memories.
She was born in Senegal.
She was born in Senegal, and then we moved in Germany. And it was only normal that I continued to tell these stories. And I see that even her friends in Europe were very interesting to hear about her childhood in Africa. And for me, it was just natural to write this and then to be in touch with publishing companies. That was very interesting to work with me.
And so you have many books, and the first one, Aïcha, the birth, and Aïcha, yes, la naissance, which is in French and English.
Exactly.
So let's start with Aïcha, the birth. Tell us more about that.
Yes, basically, Aïcha addressed a universal emotion, which is the birth, okay, which interests a lot of children. So it was inspired, of course, by my own experience with my daughter, and I wanted to create a tool for the parents and the teachers to discuss about this topic, you know, whether there's a newborn in the family, and really, you know, address the emotions around the birth. There's also a glossary at the end to explain every scientific event around the birth. So it's really a pedagogical tool as well as stories for the children.
And how did your daughter, which is called Aïcha, how did she react to your book?
Well, she was very proud to discuss Africa and childhood in Africa in a modern and also very current Africa. Because, you know, usually the books that we used to read in Africa, it's more about heritage, rural context, and we really liked it. But I wanted to show something different. So the Africa of today's, where children just play, you know, the current Africa, modern and traditional. So that's what I try to reflect in these books. So there's a whole cultural dimension and also the universal dimensions.
And I have in my hand Uri and Asma.
Yes.
So how do you select the themes? Is that something that you figure that we need to talk about health for children?
Yes. So health is something I'm very sensitive about because I'm working in the healthcare industry for 15 years. So I've done a lot of work in the women health, working within pharmaceutical companies in Africa for 10 years. And when my daughter was born, naturally, you know, I was more interested also to talk to children and to make this kind of disease simple for them. You know, I have a lot of friends that have children who have asthma or eczema, and I think these are things that can reassure the children. And writing this book also helps the parents address this topic for the children.
Because they need to understand what's going on.
Exactly. There's also the dimension of diversity. You know, for example, in eczema, you have different type of skin, different type of lesions. So I wanted that everyone feel included. Exactly.
So how do you stay relevant? Because, you know, you've been writing lots of books, but now parents today are competing with other forms of, like with screens, social media for their children to get their children's attention. How do you think, how can book can play into that?
Yes. Well, I think, you know, the story time is timeless. I don't think that social media can ever replace that. I think, you know, my book is just a feel-good book, a time to share with the children. You know, there's the stories and there's also the glossary at the end, you know, just to plant these seeds of curiosity with the children. And it's really a moment where parents and children can exchange, can talk, and also discover another culture, because my books are everywhere. You know, it's in Africa. It's also a little bit sometimes in Europe. For example, with Aïcha, The Adventure of Aïcha, you will see that the books will grow with her later.
So your so far you have books in French and English.
Yes.
Are you planning to do maybe into multiple African languages?
Yes, actually, this is planned. I work with a Cameroonese publishing company, which is Akoma Mba, which does a fantastic job in Africa. So I also choose to work with them to make books more accessible in Africa, and also being able to export them in Europe, to export our stories. And Akoma Mba translate also in local language the books. So one step after another. So the books are both in English and French, and it is also, of course, planned to do it eventually in local language.
Okay.
Yes.
And tell us a bit about your experience going through the publishing side, the business side of it. How was it for you?
It was very interesting. You know, it's a teamwork. You know, when you are author, you have an idea, you write about it, and then you also have the person who do the drawing, who do the illustration, and it's a real teamwork. Also, I had a lot to say. These books were much bigger at the beginning, so you have to compromise also, you know, with the publishing company, sometimes to shorten a little bit the story.
Is it a publishing company in Africa or?
Yes. So on this topic, I work with the publishing company in Africa. I think it was also very important today because they are very much closer to the realities I wanted to portray in the books, and it's also make the access more easy. It's enabled to export also our stories, because you have to know that today, for example, African books are 7 more times imported than exported.
And quickly, do you have any new projects that you're working on?
Well, yes. I will be presenting the 5th volume of The Adventure of Aïcha at the next exposition in Frankfurt, and also in Montreuil and in Conakry in November. And the Adventure of Aïcha has really grown with the time and address different milestones of childhood and trips that she will do later.
Great. So